So now that we have added a Pantone spot color, our client tells us that's too much money. They didn't understand. They don't want that. They don't want to pay for that fifth plate and that extra ink. So we need to switch to CMYK for everything. So Illustrator does offer us a chance to fix this under the Edit Colors dialog. So we can convert between color modes, we can blend colors, invert them, and more. So we're going to change that Pantone color to a CMYK now because our client changed their mind. So what we want to do here is we want to select everything on this active artboard. We want to get all of our pieces selected here. And then we're going to choose Edit, Edit Colors. There we go. And we have some options, a lot of them actually, but convert to CMYK. Now remember, almost everything on this document, well, that's not true. Most of this is Pantone or a tint. This pink is probably CMYK, but nothing else is. So once we click that, convert to CMYK, any color on these selected shapes, which is all of them, that had a Pantone color are converted. What this didn't do was it didn't take the Pantone swatches out of our swatch panel. They're still there, they're just not applied to anything anymore. So if we click away and we select this shape and we go over to our fill, we'll see that it is no longer a Pantone color at all. It's just a regular CMYK mix of colors. So that took it from CMYK with some spot colors to just CMYK. If this needed to be for web, you would have to convert it to RGB color mode at this point so that you could use it for web output. At times, you might want to copy appearance attributes such as how the text is formatted, what the fill and stroke are. Whatever you did to one object, you might want to apply it to other objects quickly without having to stop and change colors and fills and drop shadows and everything else. So the appearance attributes can be changed quickly with the eyedropper tool. So let's select this pink shape to start with, and then we're going to go to our toolbar and we're going to grab our eyedropper tool. Now this is different. If you're in Photoshop, when we use the eyedropper tool, it samples the color underneath and then it brings it up over here and shows us what it is so we can use it elsewhere. This is actually sampling attributes. So we're going to click inside this circle shape, and whatever the attributes are of this circle shape, which happens to be a fill and a stroke, are going to be applied to the thing that we had selected. So again, it's taking whatever the attributes are of the thing you click on and it's applying them to what you had selected. So it's now filled with this color and it has an off-white 2-point stroke attached to it. If we don't want that stroke, we just simply can come over here to our appearance and we can tell it to take it off. So you can click to deselect and use the selection tool, and there we go. If you wanted to set up how the eyedropper works before using it, you can double click on the eyedropper tool over here and it's going to copy all of these options, assuming that anything and everything applied to the object is what you're trying to copy. So it's probably easier to just let it sample everything and then take off the attributes that you don't want. So copy appearance attributes with the eyedropper. Color groups. So we saw in our swatches panel all the colors that come with the default file, but then we saw 2 subfolders at the bottom with the grayscale and then something called brights. Those are color groups. So we can save our colors in groups, which can be helpful. Maybe all the colors of your logo you want to put in a color group for easy organization and access. Let's go to Window and then Swatches to bring up our swatch panel. If you need to make this bigger to see everything, please do. Here are the 2 color groups I was mentioning. It has a little subfolder, and we have grays, and we have something called brights. All right. We're going to click on the swatch called Guitar Orange, this one. We have nothing selected on our artboard, so we're not doing anything to the artboard. We're just simply within our swatch panel, and we have selected Guitar Orange. We're going to hold down the Shift key, and we're going to come over to the item called Pantone 137, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just these 5. We want to select these 5 chips, not the tint version for whatever reason. I think we're going to change that later. And we want those to be their own group. So once they are selected, we're going to click on the folder down here that's called New Color Group. And it's going to ask us to name it. We're going to call this Guitar Colors. Say OK. And it added a new color group down here with these 5 swatches for us. Switch to your selection tool and then click somewhere in a blank area in the swatch panel to deselect all of these. Right now there's a white box around all of them, so click away to deselect. Each swatch in this group can still be independently edited by double clicking on it. That would bring up that window where we could change it. We can also rearrange these. If we wanted, we could also take this swatch, this 137C, we can click on it and we can move it out. Maybe we wanted it back up here next to its tint. We don't want it in the guitar family. Or maybe we want both of those down here. We need to click and drag till we see that blue line. Click on this one, drag it down here until we see that thick blue line right there. And when we see that thick blue line, we can let go. So you can move swatches in and out of color groups just by dragging and dropping. And before we move on, I want to talk to you about the color guide and using it for inspiration. So we're going to close this swatch panel. And when we pick a base color, this color guide is going to show us tints, analogous colors, color harmonies, different things that might work or do work, not might, they do work with the color that we've chosen. Let's go to Artboard 3, the cassette. And with our selection tool, we're going to select the green round rectangle. So this big shape at the bottom of our layer stack. And before we move on, let's, at the bottom of our toolbar, let's make sure that the fill is indeed the one that's on top. So we're targeting the fill. From here, we're going to go into Window, and then we're going to go to the color guide. So we click on the color guide, and we make this panel bigger so we can see what we have going on. I'm going to move it out of the way a little bit. This color guide is based on our base color, and it's setting up rules of colors that work with it. So in this panel, the first thing we want to do is click this Set to Base Color so that it truly sets it to be green. So the color of our object, we click once, even though it looked like it was already green, it wasn't, or it wasn't established as the base color yet. So now it is by clicking on it. So the color guide is now going to suggest other colors that work with that in different harmony rules. And then each one of them down here has different tints and shades. You can see this column looks very much like this, but then it gets darker or lighter going left or right from the tints or shades. We're going to experiment with some of the color rules. So to the right of this box, in Harmony Rules, we have a drop down. And if you haven't hit this yet in Design Fundamentals, you certainly will be dealing with color and color harmonies. So complementary colors, those are that at the opposite end of the color wheel. Split complements, analogous, those are colors that are along the outside of the color wheel. Remember how it's the hues around the outside, so it kind of goes from the rainbow all the way around. Analogous is the color you pick plus the colors right next to it, right and left. We have all sorts of different color harmonies here, and we can test out different options. Let's see, which one do we want to go to? We're going to try analogous, and that reset our colors and our tints and shade options here. So again, these are the base colors and then the tints and shades of each one of them. We're going to save this color group as a color group to our swatch panel. So at the bottom of this, we have an icon that says save this color group to the swatch panel. And that's what we want to do. That's going to save those base colors to our swatches. Just want to make sure that happened, and then I'm going to click X to close out of that. I'm going to deselect the artwork on the artboard, and then I want to look at our swatch panel, and since nothing is selected, I'm going to go about getting the swatch panel this way. I did edit twice, whoops, but here it is. I'll select that one and delete it. Yes, I accidentally clicked that button twice. So here is the color group of the color harmony based on the analogous color harmony with our base color. So we see that it's here. Another option in our window, we just did color guide, there's also color themes. And this is going to display color themes that you've created and synced with your Creative Cloud. So we'll talk more about this later in this class and or Design Fundamentals when you're working with color on the Adobe site. Okay, let's apply some colors now. We came up with that family. So we are going to apply it. We need to select, first of all, this yellow shape on our cassette. We're going to come over to our fill box, and then in this color family that we just added, we're going to click to apply the lighter blue swatch. If we want to edit this color, we're going to double click on the swatch in the swatch panel. Here it is. And we can tweak it if we want to. One thing we're going to do is make it a global color right off the bat. And then they just want us to change this by making the cyan value 0. You want to see a preview of that? It's a totally different color. And okay. Now, I'm not sure you would necessarily do this because the whole point of this was that it was a color family that was guaranteed to work with your base color. And you just went in here and sucked out all the cyan and made a different color. You know, that's perfectly fine if you want that color, but if you're relying on these color families to help you select color that works together, you might not want to tweak it the way we just did. All right, let's move on to our next topic.